Hello and welcome. My name is Patrick. I am a biochemist by training, now working as a science communicator and advisor, but I will talk about this a little bit more. What I want to focus on now is how you can master your social media journey. I've been active as a science communicator for quite a while, and I've been working with different kinds of companies, institutions, and individuals who wanted to grow their own channel. And based on all of these experiences and knowledge, I want to share with you what I believe is most important for you to understand when it comes to whether you should invest in social media, how you can grow your social media, and of course, how to navigate it to have fun with it in the end. And so having that said, let's just get right in, because I know that we are all limited in time. And normally for me as an advisor, I would basically work with companies and institutions, but the International Union of Biochemistry and Molecular Biology today asked me to host this event for a range of different audiences. At first, I want to quote unquote talk to all the enthusiastic people here that already have a social media channel and now want to grow it. Whether you have your channel for 2 weeks, 2 months, or 2 years, doesn't really matter. What is important is that you have a first bit of experience with social media. Maybe you're already posting regularly, but what you want to do is to figure out how to actually skyrocket this growth as soon as possible. However, even if you do not yet have a channel, you're uncertain whether you should invest in social media, if you're a society or a company, or if you're an individual, if you're not sure if you have the time or what the right strategy is. Also, this is what I'm going to address today. And finally, and those that are simply interested in science communication, because I would argue that on social media, we find some of the very best science communicators. And I think there are a few strategies that might really help you to figure out how you can improve your communications and maybe how to choose the right channel for your interest. And so having that said, in essence, what I want to share today is that I believe social media is a huge opportunity for you. What I believe in is that social media is here to stay. So we will not see social media declining, shrinking. No, I think very much the opposite is going to be the case. We are going to see it as an even more important road of communications. And this is why I would argue that if social media is for you, you should get started as quickly as possible. How to know if social media is for you? I would argue if what you want to do needs more attention, social media is for you. To explain this a little bit more in detail, if you're a society or your company and you need more attendees for your event, or you want to have more people know about your activities, social media is for you. Of course, if you have to, let's say, organize an event, you need help with this, you need to improve the event or the item that you're selling, then of course you should focus on other things. But if it is to get more attendees, more eyes, social media is for you. If you're a single scientist, I think social media is for you if you really want to have more people look at your work. Meaning, if you want to publish higher impact factor, I don't think social media is going to be your first choice. Or if you want to improve in science communication, taking a course might be something you should prioritize. But once you have the skills, once you have the paper already published, if you need to get more attention, social media is for you. I've been organizing multiple newsletters. I've been writing online blogs. I've won a reward for writing articles. I have been doing, of course, events like this, organizing conferences and so on and so forth. But I would argue that nothing really has as much leverage as social media when it comes to getting attention. So again, if eyes on a topic is the thing that you need right now, social media is your thing because it's incredibly powerful. And now I want to dive in a little bit deeper into sharing my own story and sharing how you can succeed. Because I believe you will only succeed in social media if you dedicate a certain amount of time into learning how it works. Because the point I will make is that it's like a game. It has some rules. You need to understand and figure out these rules, and then you will succeed. But you can't succeed if you just keep on posting without reviewing what you're doing, or thinking that somehow just because what you're doing is good enough, you will have success. Because it's much about framing and how you put it. But let's get into all of this a little bit deeper. Because at first you might ask, okay, who is this guy telling us about social media? I'm Patrick Pendurf, and I was able, just with a basic setup, that is a computer and a webcam, to reach more than 5 million views across platforms, and importantly, with scientific content. I think this is what many of us are interested in, because I think we all see and know this different kind of content when we enter, whether it's Instagram, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, that, so to say, gets a lot of clicks. The algorithm feeds us what it thinks we like, but we're always thinking, okay, where are the science communicators here? So therefore, I've been working with the world's largest science companies and societies, helping them to grow. And I'm doing this because, again, I'm a former scientist. I studied biochemistry and have been in the lab, but now I'm self-employed, working as an advisor and a consultant. However, what I really want to bring across here is that basically just a few years ago, I started, as probably we all do, on social media. And I didn't know what I believe is most important, that it's a game. I thought, okay, social media is something where I can share my passions, where I can just basically put something out, and if it's good enough, people will see it and like it, and I can connect there. And I believe this is true if you do this on a very personal level. If you have your Facebook account, you want to connect to family or friends, this is how it goes. But if you want to grow with social media, if you want to become a successful science communicator, I believe understanding that's a game might be the very best thing you can do. And what I'm meaning by this is it's not like a game, like a board game, where you basically just have a fixed set of rules and then you do something and this is the right thing or the wrong thing. I would think about it a little bit more like blackjack. And I'm not the biggest blackjack player, but once my friends got me into this, what I realized is that a few interesting parallels. If you play blackjack, the thing is that, of course, in the end, it's still a kind of gambling. It's still chance involved. However, if you play the perfect strategy, then you can increase your chances. And this is why you might have seen in movies, or maybe in anything you have seen about it, if you play blackjack yourself, that, of course, sometimes the casinos are going to kick people out because they are too successful. And I believe we see some parallels here in social media. That means in the end, you cannot predict whether a certain video or a certain post is going to go super well, super viral or not. It is in the end a game of chance and randomness to some extent. No matter how big your channel is, you will not be able to predict if it's going to be the best video you post this year or maybe just an average one. However, if you keep up, if you keep playing and keep improving and you stick to the best practice, you will win. So unless other people that just go to the casino and just gamble, you have a strategy. You count the cards. You know the basic principles. You have done the math. You understand how the game goes. But if you do this in real life with blackjack, you might cash in a lot of money, and casinos don't like this. So they are going to kick you out. And I think this is also something that we see on social media, in the sense that people will tell you, you're just doing clickbait here. You are not really a science communicator because you didn't mention this kind of paper, and so on and so forth. So what all of this means is that social media is something where you will have to do your best. You need to analyze the game. You cannot just go to the casino and play a little bit. You need to understand the game. You need to understand the rules. And then you play, and you won't immediately win. But over the long term, you will have a higher frequency where you win, where you have a 55% chance of taking money home from the casino. And even then, it's not going to be all too easy. But this is why we see some blackjack players actually becoming millionaires. And I think the very same is possible in social media. So to underline all of this, again, I've been starting like this. I thought, okay, the very first time I've been posting here on LinkedIn, I am in the lab. I was interested in sustainability. So I didn't know how fume hoods actually worked, how we can make it more sustainable. Let's post about it. I mean, this post got 5 likes. I was thinking, okay, I've been reading an article I was really passionate about because I think it just misrepresented some of the science in there. It got 2 likes. And so I thought, okay, maybe I do something funny. And the only funny thing about this is that it got one person laughing together with me. If you think about that, the whole goal here was to just get attention. But I think this is normal. So if you just start out, don't get discouraged by this. And again, I've been volunteering in now 4 national and international scientific organizations as a volunteer. So together with nonprofits and companies. and they have the very same problem. They do the very same thing. They post what comes to their mind, and then it doesn't really work. So you think about something else, and then maybe you try this out and it doesn't really work, and you think it's just a matter of time. And then you continue and continue and continue. I did the very same. I thought, okay, maybe it's that I need to do some kind of videos. So I tried this. Wasn't really it. Then I thought, okay, maybe I'm just not passionate about it. And I did something here where you see the total eclipse connecting to mythology. Doesn't really work either. And so, of course, I thought, is it the algorithm that's against me? Is it simply not possible to win this game? But of course, if I look back, if this is my post, I can understand why people really didn't interact with it much. As a little disclaimer here, it's always more difficult to grow a little channel. We will come back in the very end on how long it will take for you to see results. I would argue it's probably about 2 to 6 months to see the first successful results if you post 2 to 3 times a week. But if you keep on doing it, you will see it's getting better. If you know how to write a post, what people are interested about, as you can see here, 48,000 impressions with 273 people liking this kind of post. This one, where I, again, kept on working on sustainability in the lab, hosting one of my events, more than 500,000 impressions, more than 4,500 likes. And then this one, which was very focused on a specific topic where I was consulting, it only got 5,000 impressions, you might say, but it's still 97 people liking it. So what I want to share with that is that even if you on average, and I now get between 30,000 to 200,000 views each month on my account, even then it's not every single post that's going through the roof, but this is also not the only thing what you should be looking for. Every post has a certain purpose. Some of them are to communicate what you're doing. They're more orientated at your audience. Others, though, are there to grow your channel, like the one on the very left that you see here. But these are all things I had to learn. These are things that take time to figure out and that can be very frustrating in the very beginning. However, once you have understood how it works, you can repeat it. So to show you that the posts that you have seen now are not just, these viral instances where you don't know why they go viral and you're just lucky. No, this one get 86,000 impressions with 915 likes. This one with 2,863 and only 45 likes. And I know I'm talking a lot of numbers here, but they should just give you a general outline, was because I did a mistake. I don't want to go too deep into this, but how you can save time with a PCR. Most people wouldn't probably even see it as a PCR. If you look at the post on the left, it's very more catchy, isn't it? And here's proof that you can reuse it. It's much more interesting. And then reusing single-use items is something my audience already knew about. So this is something that they might have been interested in. So sticking to your realms can be something that can be useful. So the point I want to make here is that you can repeat this over and over again, but you will always play to the very same rules. It's not that just because you're a big channel, you can do whatever you want and it's going to work. I know when I started out, I saw these big content creators. I saw people giving webinars like this. Oh, I got so many hundreds of thousands of views and this is great and this is amazing. And so I searched for the silver bullet, but there's no silver bullet. It's a combination of many factors playing into this. It's a little bit the thumbnail design, a little bit the size of your channel, a little bit the thumbnail, a little bit the time and the algorithm, a little bit the people you tag, and so on and so forth. And so this was a recent post I made about science communication. I got in over my head. I thought, oh yeah, and then I make a nice thumbnail with these different pictures here and there. And then I share some really interesting insights on how to do science communication. Of course, as you've seen, 15 likes. This is not too much. But if I now look back, I can understand how I was in over my head. I now thinking back wouldn't ever do this thumbnail again. I like it. I still enjoy it. I still enjoy the idea I've had about it. But I think this is the biggest curse for beginners. So if you want to grow your channel, you just want to start out and you have all these ideas what you want to do and how to improve, you need to understand that social media is mostly about your audience. If you keep on posting what you think is interesting, what you believe is something that, makes your heart go faster, that is nice. But to grow, to be really successful, you need to change your perspective a little bit. And I think this is one of the biggest differentiators between those people that have experience on social media and those do not. And which I think is a reason for why so many companies and societies actually struggle with it, and why so many newcomers at one point just give up, because they never really make the switch from I'm posting for my audience rather than I'm posting something I'm interested in and I hope people will like it. However, we all have been there. I want to share, because this, again, entire thing comes of the courtesy of the International Union of Biochemistry and Molecular Biology, the IUBMB, which is a nonprofit that normally supports scientists from their bachelor levels to their professor level, right? They have journals to publish, they have scholarships, and so on and so forth. And they asked me to do this because normally I would probably charge like a few $100 an hour to go through with societies. But they asked me to do this because we have been working together for quite a while, and they want to provide this to their adhering bodies and their audience. And so this is how I started out with the IUBMB when I was just, very new to the field. I would interview people from the International Union of Biochemistry and Molecular Biology Executive Committee and some of their junior members, and put together these nice little interviews. And these are the thumbnails, as you can see them on Instagram. And this is basically how it looked like. I would interview then and then cut out the most interesting pieces, which sometimes really contained very good and very interesting information. And I did this because the people at the IUBMB thought this might be a good idea. So I did as they told me. You can see here, I think 92 weeks ago. It is quite a while. But the problem was it simply didn't work. You see, I've been trying everything. I thought like, okay, maybe this isn't the right thumbnail idea. Maybe I do something like this and this will, draw on much more attention. Didn't really work. So I started with the beginning screen. Like instead of showing the person, I would try to put these interesting questions there and see how then this works. But also this didn't really work. And now looking back, I wouldn't say that it was obvious. But of course, now that I have all of this experience, I can see that social media has its own rules. If they don't know a face, you don't know why you should listen to them. Moreover, I was doing these interviews over Zoom, so the quality wasn't as good. If you watch an interview or a podcast, these people have really good recording devices. So this wasn't cutting it. But what really made the difference was doing this. I pivoted with, again, the openness. And I think that's a very important point of the IUBMB leadership, saying, yes, we want to grow our channels. This is the main goal. So go for what you believe is best. And so we made this science communication content, really figuring out what is the most interesting science that people are interested about. And this then made all the difference. Now, as you can see here, this is LinkedIn with over 7,000 likes. So I haven't the number quite in my head. I think it was like between 500 and 800,000 impressions. What we see here, YouTube, 239,000 views. And this is Instagram, where we eventually reached 939K views talking about DNA origami. And of course, you can imagine that this was much more successful. I'm showing these different channels because, just as a side note, social media is not quite social media. YouTube works differently from Instagram, works differently from LinkedIn. And this is what you can see here. For example, this DNA origami video, that didn't do quite well on YouTube. I think it just got a few thousand views. But this is why you need somebody with experience to help you, or at least to listen to somebody so that you can make these experiences a little bit faster. Because what eventually happened is, this is a slide that I showed to the leadership. If you see, this was initially what the IUBMB was posting. This was the early content, what I just showed you with these different kinds of interviews. And this, what I call late content, is basically what I did then in terms of science communication. And you can see here with the accounts reached, I mean, this is a wholly different kind of game. And with the followers, you see it as well, how quick the growth is. And when talking from my own experience and those from others, this is what you're going to see often. You won't really have a linear growth. You will probably have these kind of waves, and they are coming and going. Some pieces will do really, really well, and they will get a lot of people visiting your channel and consuming the other content as well. And this can be another difficulty if you're a newcomer, because you see not much happening for a while, but then you figure something out and it works extremely well. And this is how you go step by step by step. This is why continuously improving is important. But if you can have somebody like an advisor or somebody who has already done it successfully, giving you the tips, giving you some reviews, I think it can be just incredibly powerful, because again, growth can often be exponentially rather than linear. And this is what I showed them as well. I think this was after half a year or a year. Over 1 million clicks on their account, an unbelievable, like a staggering amount of more than 1,700 hours of people watching. And then, as you can see here, the unique views on Instagram skyrocketing. On LinkedIn, this was even more impressive. But as you can see as well, Twitter, not doing as much. And also YouTube, we still had to figure out how to properly communicate to the audience there. So what I want to share with you here is that, of course, I want to give you some of these ideas and experiences, because I think the emotional journey you'll be on social media is going to be difficult as well. You really burn about the topics you post about. Maybe your channel, is already 2 years old and you're a science communicator, or maybe you're just communication person of your society, and you really want to do something for them. And then you put in the effort, but you don't see much happening. Stick with it. Try to continuously improve, because once you hit it, it really, really goes quote unquote viral. It will really show something. But it doesn't mean that everything will then be just beautiful and perfect. You need to keep up the game. You're in there for the long run. So if you're asking yourself, should you go with social media right now? Think about it, whether you're passionate enough, and if you want to put in the time over probably half a year to 2 years to really get to good growth. And then, of course, you need to keep it up. Especially on YouTube, you can benefit a lot from also old content. But again, you will only have an active, strong growth if you keep on posting. This is why I said also, if you look at this graph, that you need some resilience and some persistency. Excuse me, this is in German. This should be 420 days. So if you see how long nothing happened, you would believe this piece is just bad. It's just doing nothing. But then the channel grew, the algorithm understood, okay, these people put out valuable content. And then you see more than 100,000 views. You're in there for the long game. So if you think, should I use social media maybe, as a project for 2 months and then I'm figuring out, I don't think that's going to be it for you. Try it out for 1 or 2, 3, 4 weeks. Do you like it? Can you maintain it? But only if you really see the attention helps you. The attention helps you to get citations. The attention gets you more attendees or more people to look at your products. This is what you want to do. This is the most important thing. But this is a long-term game in the end. So again, it's a game. And I would argue the game for you is now want to play or not to play. Meaning, can you make profit with it, right? Is it that you can convert these views into something, into citations, into applications, registrations, whatever? Or can you fall in love with it? Can you have fun? I'm talking here a lot about like stats and numbers, but of course, if you can have fun with it, even better. Of course, I was passionate about doing these kinds of contents because I was able to learn something about it. I would see how things worked, and I would argue I significantly improved my communication skills overall. The way I now write articles, the way I now write blog posts is very different from before social media. But these are the two things, right? You're here for a game. You're not having a board game evening with your family and friends. You're going to the casino. So do you have a lot of fun, or do you make a profit from it? Otherwise, if you enter the casino, you will be driven crazy by the randomness and the chance. Even if you play perfect strategy, even if you understand how to count in blackjack, you won't win every game. You'll have posts that go badly. If you don't listen to your audience, you're probably not going to be as successful. And so it is a game that you need to want to play in the end. But having this said, I want to share some truth with you, because if you decide social media is for you, there are a few things that really took me quite a long while to figure out. And I believe that it's very hard to understand these things if you do not have a few months of experience in social media and probably a few pieces that get I would argue, a little bit more than 100,000 views. Because to really get into the weeds takes a little bit of time and a little bit of success to really understand what it is that makes you successful and what it is that simply doesn't work. And so I would argue the first thing is dreams, then attention and analysis. I think if you understand these 3 points, I believe you're well prepared to decide whether social media is for you, and if so, to succeed there. Dreams. Let's start with this one, because I believe social media is really about dreams. I know people telling you all sorts of stuff, and I told you, yes, you can get more citations for your papers. The point is that, of course, there are many gurus out there that will tell you, hey, you just buy this template and you're going to go viral. Or, hey, you just do this one thing and your channel is going to have 1 million subscribers in 2 months. I don't think these things work. If they would work, why should they share it with you? And why is not everybody doing it? I think it's a little bit more complicated. It needs your time, it needs your effort. But I still believe that dreams are fulfilled on social media. If you look at the post on the very left, this was just a colleague of mine asking me like, hey, we have this kind of paper. Would the society be interested in promoting it? And so it got 75 likes. I guess it's a few thousand people looking at it. I mean, they published it, but how many people read your publications if you do not publish it in Nature? Right here, you have an outlet. You have people actually reading it. And if you look to the right, this was a post I made on LinkedIn about the transfer of mitochondria. Got more than 100,000 impressions. So probably about 80 to 90,000 people that actually looked at the post. And I think this is important because, yes, even if you work on a niche topic, if you want more eyes on your topic, if you want to do advocacy, if you want to let people know what is going on in research, I believe social media can be your very key. And yes, indeed, I've been, again, working in several organizations with companies, with nonprofit societies, and almost none of them are able to pull this off. But it is possible, and I want to show you that it really is. Secondly, get more attendees and more registrations. Let's say you're a nonprofit organization. If you look at the post on the left, I've shown you this before. I was hosting an online summit on sustainability. I think this single post got me 200 to 300 registrants. So if you have events, if you have scholarships or fellowships, and you want people to know about them, I believe social media can make your dream come true, that with a single post, people learn about it. And this, for example, I wrote for a newsletter, and here was about, getting labs to actually sign up to become a host lab for students if they apply to a scholarship. And also here we got several labs joining in. I was surprised because I thought, it's very difficult to get people to sign in on this, but it worked. I think even with just one of these pieces, it was like 11, 12 or even more labs signing up as new host labs. So your dreams can come true. And of course, I also want to, if you're an individual, talk about making money, because if you know maybe Veritasium, I think he does amazing things. I think he's also an amazing science communicator. And I've had this discussion on LinkedIn lately where I would argue some of the things or if you know 3 blue, 1 brown, this is the number 3, then blue, the color, 1 brown. On YouTube, he's making mathematics focused videos. This is just education, even will help you to understand the contents you learn in university better. I think we are really on a level that you have the very best science communicators worldwide there. On Niall Redd, we will talk about him a little bit more, somebody interested in chemistry, and with the number of views and subscribers they have, they of course make a living from it. And I know you might be doubtful and say, hey, Patrick, don't sell us things in the terms of, we are scientists still, but you don't need to become them necessarily. I think this is very impressive. 5 billion views per day on YouTube, 150 billion on Instagram with short form content, but even on TikTok, 1 billion views per day. And I think this was from last year. I want you to understand the scale of social media these days. You don't need to become a full-time content creator, but if you want attention, or maybe if you want to make a little money, maybe if you want to find a collaborator, Or if you just have a question, and there, of course, I can advise Reddit, and you just want to post something about your lab methods, social media is for you because there's huge traffic. I think it's often hard to understand because when I was still in the lab, of course, my colleagues and I wouldn't really talk about social media all too much, but all of them were there. And how often would people come and say, "Hey, did you read the paper that is out? I just saw about it on Twitter at the time, on X." So sharing, getting to new ideas, maybe getting more traction, this is all possible with social media, and your dreams can come true. I truly believe so. But to make your dreams come true, what I believe you need to figure out, or what you need to understand, is that social media is, of course, something that goes with a certain kind of difficulty. Because I think if we think about, for example, the name TikTok, this is what comes to mind. These kind of silly dances. And they still exist, and they will always exist. And we have things that, if you read my weekly educational newsletter, I'm talking about the lab girls, because I believe on Instagram, there are many scientists, female scientists in this case, that share just what they're doing every day. And you can say this is limited in education. It might be, but this is how social media works. So yes, this content will prevail. And yes, you will need to find your niche, but you don't need to think about other people's dreams. You can make your own work. As I've shown you, there are people doing chemistry, people doing math, people sharing what they do every day. What is your dream? You can make it come true. But to do so, we should talk about attention, because I think this is the main thing you need to figure out about social media. I saw this video lately, which I think was amazing. It's an octopus playing the piano, and the title reads, "I taught an octopus piano. It took 6 months, and more than 3 million people watched it in 5 days." This is social media. It is a little bit of craziness, but if you look below the surface, you will see the science. And I got this question about how to communicate properly. Again, put it in the comments if you want to go super deep. Maybe say, for example, this organelle is doing this and that, and this is what we're going to talk about, although it has other functions as well. But you need to pique attention. If you want to make your dream come true, you can't just talk about your science. You need to figure out what makes people interested in it. And of course, if you're a chemist, I think that's rather easy. If you're a biochemist, this can be a little bit more challenging, but still possible, I would argue. Right? I mean, think about Nayaret here. How difficult is it to talk about how does cyanide smell? He does it with actually a thumbnail like this. The point I want to make here is that this post I just made today for the IUBMB, right? What I tried to do here is, to have people, and right away, the value present. Imagine you get $2,000 to present your work at a conference. Let's support science around the world, saying, hey, this is for people from developing countries, and they get $2,000 to go to an event. Here on the right, what we see, well, scholarship announcement. Why should I care? I'm sure that this is actually a very valuable proposition. It's probably something really good, but how does it make me care? How should I know what all of this is about? So attention is what drives social media. Before you start, figure out you really have this one figured out. And finally, how do you figure out attention? I would argue analysis. I think this is what makes most scientists that want to communicate fail, because I believe it's all about analysis. And analysis starts with learning from others. This is Gary Vee, this is Alex Hormozi or The Future, and so on and so forth. There's lots of YouTube channels telling you how to do social media. And of course, take them all with a grain of salt. They love to tell you that there's a silver bullet and there's one strategy, and sometimes it works. If you have a certain kind of business, Alex Hormozi is going to make it skyrocket, but we are science communicators. So we probably need to adapt the one other thing here. Therefore, just watch it. Just listen and learn from others and figure it out. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. There's so much good advice out there. Just consume it from time to time. If people ask how much time should you take, I don't know. Let's say you listen to a podcast or a video for 5 minutes each day. I think this is a good start just to get yourself in the right headspace. But then analyze other people's content. I intentionally chose non-scientific content because I would argue that lots of my inspiration came from non-scientific content, right? We had a 10x engineer. This was a funny thing about, they hire somebody and he's basically incapable to do anything, but because he has a good CV, he's calling himself a 10 times engineer. And here we have a little funny video about blue collar interviews. And what this might me think about right away is if you, let's say, want to recruit new talent for your society, your company, or even your lab, why don't you do something similar? Like think about what are the funny things if people go into interviews and then put it on social media. This is your attention hook. And then you deliver what you want to share. The thing on the right, moments of extreme trust, having Red Bull obviously doing something, very crazy, people going down with these longboards with 99 kilometers per hour. What right away came to my mind, which really went well on TikTok, I believe, was, of course, ultracentrifuges. How many of us are getting nervous if you stand next to an ultracentrifuge and you're afraid that it's not well balanced? So why not making a moments of extreme trust lab edition? If you're a society, I'm sure you have a few members that would be super passionate about doing it. And again, here it's about natural content. You don't need to make it super professional. But this is what I'm saying. Immerse yourself in the game. Understand the basic rules. And this is how you're probably going to win more easily. For example, as you can see here, this is saved content on my LinkedIn account. And on the right, these are all the videos I liked on Instagram. And I'm not doing this because I do enjoy social media too much in the sense that I'm spending hours watching it. I probably spend 20 to 30 minutes a week spending on social media, apart from posting myself, obviously, just to see what is doing well. What are people liking? What is the setup of a specific post? I also received the question, how do I do good scientific content? And we will get back to this in the very end, but I would argue, if you watch these videos and you see, okay, all of them are starting with a question in the beginning, might be something you want to try out too. So again, analysis, right? Understand it like a game. You're now learning to play blackjack and you need to count the cards. So spend time learning, not just playing. And the thing before we get to the Q&A, I know we're already here for 40 minutes, is that I really want to highlight there's no organic content. And of course, there's a little bit of a hyperbole. Of course, there is organic content, but I would argue there's very little successful organic content. And I'm saying this because it's so easy to believe that, especially if you go on TikTok or Instagram, people just pull out their camera and do a vlog from their lab and it gets millions of views. Or of course, if you watch the other content, people just doing crazy stuff on the street, like meeting some strangers and they do something amazing. Or in terms of science, they go to a conference and see these amazing talks. But what I want you to understand here is that very little of this is actually organic. It is staged in the sense that it's a lot of effort, either to talk to a lot of people, to try out this, lab song that you have written 10 times before you actually upload it, and then maybe 10 hours of editing going into this. I want to give you two nice examples. The first one is we talked about Niall Rad. He's doing lots of chemistry content. For example, here, turning plastic gloves into hot sauce. He's basically extracting a compound that he will later, through a synthesis, make into, I'm not sure if it's capsaicin, but something similar. And this is what you see in his videos, right? It's very, very simple way. Like you see here, the beaker, he's pouring things in, and then he's going to put this into a vacuum rotator to get rid of the liquid, and then he's going to do some other syntheses and so on and so forth. Like very simple. So you might think, why not I am doing this? Because to get to what seems easy, you need a lot of effort. I think this is the special thing about social media, or overall. I mean, it's the same for Hollywood or for comedy. If you don't see the quality is good. And this is what Niall Labs Red looks like today. You see this little thing with the beaker, but this is what it looks like. And for other people, for other science communicators, this is a team of several people. This might be 2 or 3 people just editing the content. However, I don't want you to become intimidated. because it doesn't mean that you need this. It just means that if you want to have a channel with 2 million followers, you probably need to get to their skill level. But if you just want to get more people, if you want to perform at a level where you get, I don't know, 100, 200,000 views, what can be totally enough is PowerPoint. I did motion graphics where you can actually see lines like what you would normally believe, is made with the Adobe Suite, something that, looks like super professional. And I think this video got like 55,000 views on YouTube with PowerPoint. I would argue that most of you didn't even know that PowerPoint could make anything like a motion graphic. And I'm sure that most of professionals would laugh about me for using PowerPoint, but it's possible. I think the really, excuse me here, I had to reconnect. There we go. I think the really important thing to understand here is that in the end, you don't need all too much. You can't make it simple, but you need to put in the time to understand, how do I make it look good? I couldn't make an 2-hour video like this, but for a 1-minute explanation video, it was completely enough. So don't be intimidated. Don't think you need too much. You can make it work. And with this, I want to briefly address in the last 2 or 3 minutes a few questions that you might have that I received previously before we get into the main Q&A with your questions right away. But I think they're very valuable because, of course, many of you might wonder, how much time do you need to invest? And I already mentioned, the best thing is if you put your mind into the topic and listen to stuff every single day. But I believe if you want to grow your channel, a good, I would say baseline to aim for is 2 posts per week, and initially putting probably 3 to 4 hours into creating them. This will get less with time, right? After half a year or a year, it might just be 1 hour that you need to put in. But I think initially you want to go for something like this. And again, here there's a lot of discussion. People might tell you need to post every day. Other people tell you once a week is enough if you have really high quality content. And I believe both of these options can lead to success. But if you want to listen to my opinion, I would argue 2 times a week is good because it gives your channel continuous content. It gives you the chance to see for 2 or 3 days, like, how is your content developing? Is it getting clicks right away, or it takes a little bit of time? And the 3 to 4 hours is really for you to have the time, figure out what do I want to post about? How do I optimize it? What can I do with it? And so on and so forth. Sometimes, if you want to learn a new skill like editing, these might easily become 8 to 9 hours. But if you want to start, let's say, with LinkedIn, which is fairly simple because you just need a picture and some text and you can do really, really well, I think if you go for this, you're at a good baseline. But as I mentioned in the beginning, you want to make this a project. For societies and companies, I think this is especially important. And for individuals, I think this is a little bit more obvious. Social media is not something like a megaphone where you just, you create this kind of idea, or you have this event, and then you just speak into the megaphone, everybody hears it. No, social media is a project in itself. Meaning, the conference you organize is one project, social media is another. Social media can get you a tremendous amount of attention attendees, but it's a project on its own. Therefore, you need somebody who produces content. And this is also why, companies, societies work with me as an advisor, because it is not easy to figure out. And so if you want to basically, get a little head start, this is how you get the advice. When will you see results? I would argue if you do what I've shown above, after 2 months, you will probably see the first little improvements. But I would argue, as you have seen with some of my posts and the results I've shared, after 6 months, I think you will see a higher number of views, of likes, of comments, but it will probably take a year until you really see an improvement in your channel. And from then on, of course, it will grow like this. So yes, you will have sometimes really, really crazy growth where people on YouTube have 3 or 4 videos and they already have 200,000 or 300,000 subscribers. It indeed can happen. But I would argue this is not the average norm. I would argue if you think about now, okay, I will put somebody in my team on this topic, 2 months until they get somewhat of a feel, 6 months until they probably get an idea what posts do well and how to do it properly, and then a year until you can really say, okay, we doubled, we tripled, we quadrupled the growth of our channel, and from then on it continues like this. What does it need? And these things sound very special right now, but I think I can put them in plain terms. Analytical openness. Analyze other channels. I cannot repeat it often enough, but be open. Just because you're passionate about something doesn't necessarily mean that this is what you should post about in this very specific way. How you frame things, that means basically how you, which words you use, how you tell a story, what do you say first, the first 2 lines of your LinkedIn post, the first sentence of a YouTube video, make a big difference. So be open about your framework, be open about how you post. Secondly, resilience and pain tolerance. Again, 2 or 6 months now doesn't seem much, but it hurts. If you post 2 times a week, and even after 4 weeks, nothing has happened, that hurts. I've been there, it really hurts. And it makes you want to give up. But then you need to just see, okay, maybe I need to change how I've been posting, finding a new idea, and start the cycle over. And maybe a 3rd time, and maybe a 4th time. But just like with blackjack, you play a hand, you do everything perfectly, and you lose. And it happens again and again, and then you have a little win, but then you lose, and you lose, and you lose. But over the long term, over these 6 months, 1 year, you will accumulate a big amount of success. And never forget what I showed you as well. Content that originally doesn't do well might just be because your channel was inactive for a long time or small. It is a disadvantage. But how to do these circles, I would argue, needs creative doubt. Doubt what other people that haven't made the journey successfully tell you. Doubt what I'm telling you here. If you think, Patrick, I can do it in less than 2 months, definitely go for it. This is the fire and emotion you need. Have a creative doubt in the sense that, okay, I probably from this advice can take this piece, but this I'm not so sure about. I don't really want to follow that, or I will test it. Don't believe anybody has a silver bullet. Don't believe anybody is definitely right about everything. Be creative in how you doubt things and how you go about things yourself. And then the last 3 questions I want to discuss now. What don't you need? Because I think, although nobody has asked this question, it's a very important one. Because I think we all have these kind of preconceived notions. TikTok is for children. Instagram is just for making connections. And YouTube is somehow a strange platform after all. We need to rework them. And one of the biggest assumptions we need to rework is value. I don't believe that if you provide value, you'll succeed. What you need to do is to have attention and then connect it to a significant message. Value is what we've seen before. We have this scholarship, we have this event, we have this giveaway, we have this opportunity. All of these things are valuable, but it doesn't mean they will do well on social media. How you frame them, how you package them, how you communicate them, this will make the difference. However, it doesn't need to be anything special. You don't need to be super special. You don't need to come up with a new trend. You just need to understand the game. You don't need to be super intelligent to learn card counting in blackjack. You just need to sit there for a few days or weeks and remember when you have to do what. And the same counts with analysis and social media. And you don't need high tech or crazy skills or degrees. As I've shown you, even without the Adobe suite, you can get it working. I took an editing course, which I think ran for a month. It cost a few $100, and this is how I learned editing. And the rest is just learning, improving, getting better, figuring things out. You can do it. You can really do it, but you need to put in the effort. I was asked what makes good science communication. And I want to argue that good science communication on social media also means a certain kind of success with your content. Because if nobody listens to it or sees it, it's not really good science communication. And this is why I combine both here. What I think is actually good science communication, what is good science communication. it must be attention grabbing. I've shown you this before. I have a weekly educational newsletter that I write, and this was a topic lately. You need to get the attention of people. You can have all the value in the world. If you do not know how to get people to look at it, it won't do well. And it must have a certain emotional meaning. It doesn't need to be emotional in the sense that, you tell a love story or this is a tragedy, but emotion here as a kind of relevance, right? We feel emotion if it is relevant to us. We feel, oh, this is a great opportunity. We feel inspired, the emotion of inspiration, if this is something that we see it's getting us somewhere. So if you post scholarship announcement, I don't really have an emotion. But if you tell me, use our chance to fly around the world to a lab of your choice, I might have emotion. Trustworthiness. How to get it, what it is? I would argue trustworthiness, especially in the scientific realm, is that you know what you're talking about. And I believe you can best show this by making sure that you choose the right words. That means you don't want to be all too technical, using some crazy words only people in your niche know, but you also don't want to talk, unless you make content for children, you don't want to talk to people like you're talking to children and making things extremely simplified. Trustworthiness, I would argue, for science communication mostly means that people feel that you have an idea what you're talking about. And how to do this? Read the literature, get used to your topic, and really get deep into the weeds. Natural, how do you do natural? Again, I said there's very little organic content. Natural is basically that you feel well. We all know the LinkedIn posts, which are like, hey, I got this degree. I'm so happy. I'm so flattered. We know you are not. You might be excited, but probably not in a way that you try to make us think you are. We also see these people for the first time in front of a camera. If I look at myself for the first time when I was recording, I was talking a little bit like this, and I thought this was very natural, but my eyes were really open wide and I wouldn't really move my body and nothing. And this just comes with experience. But this is the naturalness. This is the experience you need to get. Just with writing, people need to feel that what you're writing about, you really believe in. And this is where the trustworthiness and the natural appearance basically combine. And finally, significance. I think this is one of the most important things. You need to make people aware why they should pay attention. What is a significant thing they are reading about? If you talk about your scholarships and fellowships, why is it significant for their career? If you do it like me, talking about sustainability, why is it important for them to make the lab more sustainable? Why is the tip that you give people on like how to optimize the HPLC gradient useful for them, even if they don't use HPLC on a daily basis? Right? Really make sure people understand why it is important what you're talking about. And this happens both. You need to do it throughout the video or the post. And I guess in the very end, again, to make people realize, oh, this is something I should like. This is something I should share. And so the last thing, what we will talk about next time, because I've received many more questions. And in the very beginning, I stated that this should be a two-part event because we couldn't go too deep. I want to share with you some post examples on what is good practice, what can be improved in these posts so you can get a pragmatic idea. How to develop a strategy if your organization or individual, like how do you do this with the 2 or 3 times? Like which days should you post? At which time should you post? How long should a post be? All of these things. And then finally, platforms and topics. Can you make every topic go viral? And which platform is the right one for you? And so having all of this said, you can join here right away for the second event if you're interested. Would be lovely to see you there. I think this is really more technical. So only if you know the site, that social media is for you and you want to know how to do it, I think this is the right thing for you. You can scan it now. You will also get it again via email. I would definitely advise you to follow myself or the IOBNB on LinkedIn. They have 2 accounts. The IOBNB is the active one, because there we share all the things I've talked about today, what we are doing. You can get some idea. You can copy us if this is your way to become successful. And finally, what I want to share is that I'm also hosting a weekly science communication series. that we talk a little bit more about science communication itself. Again, I believe if you watch social media and you see how the people that get millions of clicks talk about science, how they explain concepts, it will also make you a better science communicator. And for the future, all your students, if you can advise them on how to develop these skills, they'll be very grateful for this skill, I think, as well. Again, this comes out on a weekly basis, covers everything from poster design, how to give short talks, how to navigate social media.